Hey everyone, today we're going to be doing an experiment called a density tower. So the purpose of this experiment is to show how liquids of different densities can arrange themselves when they're mixed. It's also to show what density and buoyancy is and how the type of liquid that an object's put in can affect how buoyant the object will be in that liquid. So first I'm going to get into what density is. So density is how compact the mass of an object is, or the mass per unit volume of an object. So to visualize this, we can look at this image and you see two circles. So the circle, both circles have the same area, but the circle on the left has a lot more mass within the same surface area as the one on the right. So here, we would say this circle is a lot more dense than that circle. There are many things that can affect the density of a liquid. These include temperature, pressure, and composition. Today, in the density tower experiment, we're basically testing composition since the liquids are made of different compositions. We also want to describe what buoyancy is in this experiment. So buoyancy is an object's ability to float. This can be affected by the object's density along with the volume of the object. Today we're going to mainly be focusing on how its density and the type of liquid it's in affects the buoyancy. So for this experiment you're going to need a couple things, most of which you can find around your house. So to start, you can use a tall glass, you can use a cup, or this is a pitcher. We're just using this so we can better show the layers. You're going to want some water. Normal tap water works. This we put food coloring in. You could put any color food coloring. It's mostly just to show the different layers. Then you're going to need some kind of oil. Here we're using just normal household kitchen oil. And then we're also using syrup. This is just normal pancake syrup. And we're also going to want to use a couple objects to show buoyancy. So in this case we're using a grape, a piece of a sponge, and a metal nut. Alright, so to start this experiment, you're going to get your glass and your water with food coloring in, and you're going to pour a nice layer of the water. So we're going to stop right there. And what we're going to see as we add the different liquids is that the liquids are going to separate by density because they're not all the same density, so they're not going to mix. So next up, we're going to put our syrup in. You just pour some in. So after adding the syrup, you let it sit for a couple minutes for the layers to fully separate. And just to show you, we're going to put a flashlight and you can see the separation between the water, which is less dense, and the syrup, which is more dense. So now we're going to add our third layer, which is the oil. So to do that, just slowly pour it in. And you're going to see it's going to go to the top. You see that layer forming right there at the top. We're gonna give it a couple more minutes, 10 to 15, to let everything settle. So now that we waited 15 minutes for the layers to settle, we could clearly see that the most dense, which is the syrup, is at the bottom, and the least dense, which is the oil, is at the top, with the water layer in the middle. So now we're gonna put different objects in to show how density and buoyancy are affected by different liquids. So if an object passes through a layer, that means that the object is more dense than that liquid. If an object does not pass through and is stopped by that liquid, that means that the liquid is more dense. So we're going to start with a metal nut. Now, where do you guys think it's going to stop? So as you guys can see, it went all the way down to the bottom. So that means it's denser than all of these liquids. Next, we're going to use a grape. So as you guys can see, the grape made it through the oil and through the water, but it stopped at the syrup level. So next, we didn't mention this earlier, but we're going to try and use this plastic to see what level. And yeah, we're going to put it in. And as you can see, it slowly fell through the oil, and it stopped on top of the water. So it's not as dense as the water, but it is denser than the oil. And finally, the piece of sponge we're going to use to see where it stops. You can see it stays at the top of the oil, and that means that it isn't denser than the oil. So you can see the 3 layers here. We got the sponge, which isn't as dense as the syrup, which isn't as dense as the plastic, which isn't as dense as the grape, and then the nut, which is the most dense as it passed through all the layers, including the syrup. That was a density experiment. Just to review, density is the mass per unit volume of an object. Different density liquids do not mix. They separate themselves in layers, as we saw. The type of liquid that an object is in can affect its buoyancy or its ability to flow in that liquid. And if an object is more dense than a liquid, it will pass through. If not, it will stay at the top. I urge you guys to try this at home. You could do it with many household items, and you could make density towers of as many layers as you guys like. It could be more than 4. You can use different objects and different liquids. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys learned about density.